The alarms pulsed like a heartbeat beneath the metal floor, slow and steady, each thrum echoing through the hull of the starship Aurora's Grace. Captain Rylan Ward stood motionless on the bridge, listening to that rhythm as if the ship itself were holding its breath alongside him. Across the viewport, the stars stretched in white streaks, silent witnesses to a galaxy built on fragile peace. Every alien officer they passed kept their distance. Their pupils contracted, their voices softened, their bodies tensed as if expecting him to snap. Humans had spent 3 decades pretending to be harmless, but Rylan could feel something shifting. Deep, old, familiar. A predator stirs when the air changes, and across the galaxy, something had just changed. For 30 years, humanity lived among the stars like guests in a sacred temple. They walked carefully. They spoke calmly. They taught their children to smile without showing teeth. Every step was controlled, every gesture softened, every instinct chained. Because the galaxy was terrified of them. It began in 2231, when the Eldarian Ascendancy made first contact with Earth. Their crystalline vessel, the luminant spear, descended over the Pacific like a falling star. They expected to greet another peaceful species ready to join their union of 200 worlds. What they found instead was a world so brutal that it defied their understanding. Earth was labeled a Tier-9 Graveworld. No known species had ever originated from anything above Tier 5. Tier-9 planets were meant to be wastelands where life clawed at survival before extinguishing itself. Yet, humans had thrived. Gravity heavy enough to crush Eldarian bones. Oxygen-rich atmosphere that could ignite their skin. Predators that hunted in near silence. Diseases that rewrote themselves overnight. Weather that killed without hesitation. Radiation storms that bathed the surface daily. Earth was death. And humans were its children. Rylan remembered the first time he stood face to face with an Eldarian ambassador. He'd been a young officer then, lean and soft-spoken, trying to steady the trembling creature who refused to come anywhere near him. "You should not exist," the ambassador whispered through its translator. "Your world should have consumed you. Instead, it forged you." Humans wanted friendship, trade, cooperation, a seat at the table, but the other species weren't ready. A handshake from a human could fracture Zarathi bones. A raised human voice could rupture Aurilan eardrums. Human microorganisms, simple bacteria, were lethal to half the Union's population. So the Ascendancy imposed rules. Strict rules. No human could serve in military forces. Human ships could carry only minimal defensive armaments. All physical contact with aliens required safety gear. Humans must move slowly in public spaces. Speech must stay below calibrated volume levels. Humanity agreed to every restriction. They bowed their heads and swallowed their pride, choosing diplomacy over ego, peace over power. And Rylan learned the art of gentleness, how to shake hands like handling fragile glass, how to modulate his voice until it was barely a whisper, how to keep his movements calm enough not to trigger alarms on alien sensor arrays. At 38, he commanded the Aurora's Grace, one of humanity's most trusted diplomatic vessels. His strength was obvious. Every muscle built by a lifetime of gravity no alien body could survive, but he moved with the precision of a man fearful of breaking the world. Commander Elias Rourke, his first officer, understood that struggle intimately. Though small by human standards, she was still the strongest being in any room she entered. 15 years of training had sculpted her into a master of restraint. She could lift a damaged bulkhead off trapped engineers, yet pour a cup of tea without rattling a single drop. She carried the memory of a trade summit 2 years earlier, one she never told the aliens about. A Zarathi merchant spilled scalding reagent across her arm, hot enough to blister instantly. The pain was blinding. Her instincts screamed to flinch, to jerk away, to protect herself. But a human flinch happened faster than most species could comprehend. So she didn't move. She smiled through the agony. She apologized for getting in the way. Hours later, the ship's medic repaired second-degree burns along her forearm. "We are the monsters they fear," Elise once told Rylan quietly, "so we must be twice as gentle, every day, every moment." Rylan nodded then. He understood. Every human understood. They carried a legacy built on survival, ice ages, plagues, wars, extinctions. They came from people who hunted with stone and fire, who fought predators with bare hands, who shaped their world with stubborn will. But they had also built music, art, poems, homes, dreams. The galaxy saw their shadows. Humans wanted them to see the light. And for 30 years, the plan worked. The Aurora's grace drifted beside the Eldarian Crystal Citadel on Lumerus Prime, its glowing spires reflecting across the ship's hull like shards of frozen starlight. Thousands of delegates from every species gathered inside the Citadel for trade negotiations and peace summits. They watched Rylan with careful curiosity, not terror anymore, but respectful caution, until the room temperature shifted, until the lights flickered, until a tremor vibrated through the Citadel's crystalline floor. Rylan's instincts sharpened instantly. Elise straightened beside him, Eldarion delegates froze in place. Something distant but powerful sent a ripple across the Union's long-held peace. Rylan couldn't explain how he knew. He only felt it. A storm was coming, and humanity, the gentle monsters, the restrained predators, would not remain quiet forever. The storm that Rylan felt on Lumerus Prime did not begin with thunder. It began with silence. A coded transmission rippled through Union space, quiet, encrypted, and marked with a severity tag that no one had used in 3 decades. The message traveled faster than light, bypassing diplomatic channels and civilian networks, until it reached a hidden vault deep beneath New Geneva on Earth. The Apex Protocol Chamber, a place so classified that only 12 humans knew it existed. Inside that steel-walled room, Commander Eric Rowan stood over a table of holographic projections. The lights reflected across his stern features as he watched colony after colony blink out on his display. His jaw tightened, his fingers dug into the metal edge hard enough to bend it. "How many worlds?" he asked without looking away. Major Sarah Cade, a sharp-eyed analyst with a mind built for crisis work, swallowed once before answering. 13, sir. 13 colonies destroyed in the last standard year." Eric's voice turned to stone. "All by the same enemy?" "Yes," Sarah whispered. "The Droxan horde is becoming bolder." Eric exhaled slowly. He had studied the Droxan before, towering, 4-armed predators from a Tier 7 feral world, armored in natural plating and bred for conquest. For years they lurked at the edge of known space, attacking only the weakest settlements. But now they were annihilating entire planets. Eric zoomed the projection. Scorched land. Fallen cities. Shattered orbital rings. The Droxan did not negotiate. They did not ransom. They did not enslave. They erased. "They know the Union won't fight them," Sarah murmured. "Most species aren't built for war." "They never had to be." Eric nodded grimly. Predators thrive where prey grows complacent. He observed another image, a Droxan warrior standing over a ruined colony, 7 feet tall, armor-plated. Claws like knives, a face shaped for killing. But Eric saw something else too. Droxan only attack species weaker than themselves. They had never faced a true equal. Never faced someone from a Tier 9 Graveworld. "What's next?" Eric asked quietly. Sarah hesitated. Her voice dropped. "They're moving toward MYRRANTH3. Eric's brows furrowed. "A frontier agri-colony?" "Yes, 3.5 million inhabitants, families, children, scientists. The Myranth feed half the Ascendancy's outer territories." Eric's chest tightened. "Defenses?" "None within reach," Sarah said. "Their nearest military fleet is 2 weeks out, by the time help arrives." She couldn't finish. Eric closed his eyes. 3 million lives. People who woke up that morning believing they lived in a safe galaxy. "And," Sarah added softly, "there's a small human trade outpost on the surface. About 200 of ours. merchants, engineers, their families. The room fell still. Everyone understood the weight of those words. 3 hours later, Admiral Rain Stryker entered the chamber like a storm wearing a uniform. Her silver-streaked hair was tied back, her eyes sharp enough to cut through steel. 4 decades of command experience moved in every stride. She approached the table without greeting, studying the holograms with a predator's attention. "The Vanguard is closest," she said. 6 hours from MYRRANTH3. "Full crew, full weapons," Captain Elias Rourke commanding. Eric stiffened. "Admiral, with respect, you know what the treaties say. We can't deploy a human warship, not even for defense." Rain didn't blink. "I know exactly what the treaties say." She zoomed in on MYRRANTH3, fires already visible from orbit. "And I know what happens if we stand by and do nothing." Syrah stepped forward. "Admiral, if we break the restrictions, every species in the Ascendancy could turn on us. Humanity could be expelled, isolated, feared more than ever." Rain glanced around the room. Every face was human, every expression strained. "We've spent 30 years proving we're gentle," she said softly. 30 years teaching the galaxy that we're safe to be around. 30 years burying our instincts for the sake of peace. She tapped the hologram of MYRRANTH3. "But peace means nothing if we let 3 million innocent beings die when we could save them." Eric's voice cracked through the silence. "What about the political fallout? The Union isn't ready to see what we're capable of." Rain looked at him, unblinking. "They're going to see it sooner or later. Better they see it saving lives than taking them." The chamber stayed quiet for a long moment. Then she turned to the communications officer. "Send a coded transmission to the Vanguard," she said. "Authorization Striker 977. The officer's fingers shook. "Admiral, are you absolutely sure?" Quote, "I'm sure," Rain answered, "and I'll answer for every consequence." She straightened her uniform, her voice steady as carved stone. "Send the order." The transmission leapt through subspace, racing toward a starship moving at near-light speed. Aboard the Vanguard, Captain Elias Rourke stood on the bridge as the message arrived. His eyes scanned the short, impossible line of text. All restrictions lifted. Weapons free. "Save them, Captain. Show them what Graveworlders are." Elias felt his pulse slow. Not with fear, with relief. For 30 years, humanity had been confined behind polite smiles and gentle hands. Now the leash was off. He turned to his bridge crew, every one of them stone-faced, calm, ready. "Battle stations," Elias said quietly. "We move for MYRRANTH3. The Vanguard's engines roared to life, blue fire streaking across the void as the vessel banked into a new course, one it had been born to take. A storm had begun, a storm carved from human instinct. A storm the Droxan horde had never imagined existed. No more gentleness, no more carefully measured steps, no more hiding what a Graveworld breeds. Humanity was on the way, and the galaxy was about to remember why Earth was feared long before it was loved. The Vanguard tore out of hyperspace above MYRRANTH3 like a blade ripping through fabric. Captain Elias Rourke stood at the center of his bridge, boots planted, shoulders still, his gaze locked on the viewport as reality snapped back into focus. What he saw made the air in his lungs turn to iron. 39 Droxan warships hung over the peaceful agri-colony, vast angular vessels shaped like armored predators. Their hulls shimmered with scarlet war paint, their weapons glowed like molten veins, and below them, MYRRANTH3 burned. Smoke coiled into the sky like dark spears. Whole forests glowed orange. Cities ruptured into ash. Orbital defense rings lay shattered, drifting like broken bones. "Report," Elias said quietly. Lieutenant Arden Hale, tactical officer, razor-sharp mind, scanned frantically. "Sir, Droxan bombardment has been ongoing for 3 hours. 17 major settlements hit. Casualties!" His voice wavered. Estimated 600,000 dead and rising. A hush passed across the bridge. Not shock, not fear, resolve. They're hunting the evac ships, Arden added. As if on cue, the viewport showed a civilian transport struggling upward through flaming atmosphere. It wasn't even armed, just a cargo shuttle repurposed into a desperate lifeboat. A Droxan assault cruiser rotated toward it. A single blue lance of energy fired. The shuttle exploded. Ash. Families. Children. Gone. Elias didn't move. His face didn't change. Inside, something ancient uncoiled. "Sir," Arden said slowly, "the Droxan are hailing us." Elias nodded once. "Put them through." The screen flickered, and a Droxan warlord appeared. Massive, black-scaled, 4 muscular arms crossed, fangs bared in amusement. "You bring one ship against 39, little human," the creature growled. "You are either brave or very stupid." Elias studied him, calm, centered, reading him the way a hunter reads terrain. He spoke softly, deadly softly. "I am Captain Elias Rourke of the Earth vessel Vanguard. You are engaged in the slaughter of civilians. This ends now." The Droxan warlord laughed, a harsh grinding sound. "Ends? You think you can threaten us? Your species is weak, neutered by the Union. Pets who forgot how to bite." Elias didn't blink. "You have 60 seconds to stand down," he said. "Withdraw your forces. Release all captives. Surrender your command staff for war crimes tribunals." The laughter stopped. The warlord leaned closer. 60 seconds or what? You cannot fight us. You cannot fight anyone. Your weapons are limited. Your ships are crippled. The galaxy knows humans are soft." Elias's expression didn't shift, but his eyes did, just slightly. Something inside them sharpened into a predator's clarity. "The galaxy knows what we let them know," he said. A quiet murmur went through his crew. "For 30 years we have walked slowly so we would not frighten you. We have spoken softly so your ears would not bleed. We have hidden our strength because we wanted peace." He stood. He didn't tower. He didn't posture. He simply existed with dangerous calm. "You evolved on a Tier 7 world," Elias said. "You think that makes you powerful? Let me tell you about Earth, Tier-9 Graveworld." His voice deepened, carrying the weight of a legacy older than every ship in orbit. "Our gravity would crush your bones. Our atmosphere burns your skin. Our predators hunt by night and poison by day. Some are too small to see. Some get inside us and kill from within." The Droxan warlord's pupils tightened. "Our ancestors survived ice ages that buried continents. Plagues that slaughtered 9 in every 10. Wars that scorched whole nations." Elias stepped closer to the screen. "You call yourselves hunters." A pause. "We are something else." The Droxan's throat clicked once, instinctive fear, and Elias saw it. Words do not win battles. The Droxan spat. "We will burn your homeworld next. Your Earth will scream." Elias nodded once. "Then you leave us no choice." He turned to his crew. Every pair of human eyes met his. For 30 years they had lived in restraint. No more. "All hands," Elias said, his voice rising like a storm front. "We have held ourselves back long enough." The hull lights dimmed, systems shifted, the ship's hum deepened into a primal roar. No more limits. The crew straightened as one, breath synced, heart steady. No more restrictions. Elias's hands hovered over the helm. Arden lifted targeting controls. Engineers sealed reactor overrides. "Today," Elias finished, "the galaxy remembers what a Graveworld creates." He raised his hand. "Weapons free." The Vanguard surged forward, not calmly, not slowly. Explosively, its engines howled like a waking beast. The entire ship lunged into motion, frames straining as it broke the gentle rules humanity had obeyed for decades. Droxan weapons fired first. Plasma torpedoes, rail cannons, beam casters. Thousands of shots converging on one human ship. "Brace!" Arden shouted. But the Vanguard was already gone. Helm Commander Elias Rourke slammed the vessel into a spiral maneuver so violent that an Eldarian pilot would have blacked out instantly. The hull groaned. Sparks burst from conduits. "To starboard," Elias ordered. Elise pivoted hard. The ship slipped under a barrage, weaving through fire like a predator dancing between strikes. "Targets locked," Arden said. 3 cruisers, firing. Human weapons, real weapons, the ones the Union never knew existed, sang their first true song. Beams of hyper-dense energy sliced through Droxan armor like it was thin frost. Missiles shrieked across the void, curving with machine-guided hunger. The first Droxan warship erupted. The second folded in on itself. The third snapped apart like a broken cage. On the Droxan flagship, Warlord Marath jolted back as his tactical screens filled with impossible data. "What are they?" he roared. His officers had no answer, but the galaxy was about to learn. The crew of the Vanguard felt it too. The shift, the release, the quiet mask falling away to reveal the truth beneath. Humans weren't just strong, they were built to survive the unsurvivable, and when they finally stopped pretending to be harmless, the galaxy trembled. The Droxan horde had dominated the outer spiral for centuries. They had crushed weak colonies, they had raided peaceful species, they had never lost a battle, they had never met anything like a human warship unleashed. The Vanguard tore into their formation with predatory precision, fast, silent, unstoppable. Helm Commander Elise Hart flew as if her body were welded to the ship. The vessel responded to every micro-movement of her hands, rolling between enemy fire, slipping beneath cruisers, rising behind destroyers like a ghost emerging from smoke. Warning klaxons wailed. Engines strained past safe limits. Hull plating flickered red with thermal stress. But the humans didn't flinch. Elise whispered to the ship like it was alive. "Hold together, girl. We've trained for this." And the Vanguard obeyed. "Tactical status," Elias said, bracing against the rapid maneuvering. Lieutenant Arden Hale's fingers flashed over consoles. 2 Droxan destroyers disabled. 1 cruiser obliterated. "They're slow, Captain. Too slow. Their tracking computers can't keep up." Explosions lit the void like lightning rippling across a midnight sea. Droxan ships fired wildly, desperate and overwhelmed. Yet every shot came a fraction of a second too late. Humans, born on a world where death evolved 10,000 forms, moved faster. Arden's voice sharpened. 3 targets at bearing 83 Mark 1. "Firing now!" 3 more Droxan warships vanished in bursts of flame. Inside their flagship, Warlord Marath watched as ship after ship went dark. His armored fists slammed into the console. "They cannot move like this!" he roared. "No species can survive that velocity." His officer interrupted, trembling. "Warlord, their bodies were forged on a Graveworld. Their reflexes." "Silence!" Marath snapped. "Keep firing!" But firing didn't help. The Droxan were predators of a lesser world. Humans were survivors of a world that hated them into existence. Down in the engineering deck, Chief Engineer Mara Lynn stood amidst smoke and screaming alarms. The reactors surged past 135% output, numbers that should never appear outside simulation. "Bridge, this is engineering!" Mara shouted. "I'm routing emergency power to shields and thrusters. You have 90 seconds before I need to start shutting systems down, or they'll melt through the floor." Elias's voice came back through the comms, steady as stone. "We won't need 90 seconds. Mara grinned grimly, wiping soot off her face. "Didn't think so! Burning hotter!" She slammed a reinforced lever. The lights flickered. The ship groaned like a creature rising from deep water, and the Vanguard surged forward again. Elise threw the ship into a tight corkscrew turn. The maneuver would have liquefied most aliens. To humans, it was uncomfortable, but tolerable. A Droxan dreadnought loomed ahead, massive, armored, bristling with cannons. They fired. 1,000 plasma bolts filled the void. A wall of death. "Evasive pattern Raptor 4!" Elias ordered. Elise didn't answer. She acted. The Vanguard dipped under the barrage, engines flaring white. Beams singed past its hull, burning scars across the plating, but not hitting where it mattered. Arden locked onto the dreadnought's exposed belly. firing breach torpedoes. 2 missiles streaked outward, silent, bright, hungry. They struck. The dreadnought's armor blistered, then ruptured, then collapsed inward, consumed by its own reactor implosion. The entire Droxan front line shuddered. Predators finally understood fear. Droxan ships attempted to regroup, forming a dense defensive ring around their flagship. Arden smirked. "They're trying to box us in, Captain." Elias shook his head. "They think like creatures who've never faced a faster predator." He raised 2 fingers. "Elise, thread the needle." Her eyes hardened. "Yes, sir." The Vanguard plunged straight toward the tightest part of the formation. Plasma storms raged around them. Droxan ships fired everything they had. "Shields at 20%, Arden called. "Noted," Elias replied. Another barrage. Another near miss. The hull screamed as metal warped under pressure. "Elise," Elias said quietly. "Now." She rolled the ship 90 degrees and slid between 2 Droxan cruisers. Passing so close the hull scraped one of them. Sparks erupted across the viewport. Arden fired at point-blank range. Both cruisers exploded simultaneously. The 9th minute, when the hunters run. The Droxan horde broke formation. For the first time in their history, they retreated. Engines ignited. Hyperdrives warmed. "Captain," Arden said, breathless, "they're trying to jump to FTL." Elias stepped forward. "No running," he said. "Not after what they've done." He pointed. "Elise, intercept." The Vanguard leapt ahead like a striking serpent. Arden fired assault beams into retreating engines. Droxan ships spun out, dead in space. Others detonated as reactors overloaded. Panic spread through the horde. Only a handful of warships remained. Then 3. Then 2. Then. The Droxan flagship drifted alone among the wreckage of its armada. Smoke, debris, corpses floating like shadows. Marath finally appeared again on the comms. His scales, once vibrant, had dulled. His throat trembled. His forearms hung limp. A predator stripped of certainty. "What are you?" he whispered. Elias stood on the bridge of the Vanguard, surrounded by calm, disciplined humans. The burning remains of 39 Droxan ships drifted behind him. He answered softly, "We are human." He didn't raise his voice. He didn't bare his teeth. He didn't gloat. "We come from a world that tried to kill us every day," he said. "And we learned to survive not through cruelty, but through each other." He leaned closer. "You threatened innocence. We don't allow that." Marath lowered his gaze. "We surrender." Elias nodded once and cut the channel. Dropships deployed from the Vanguard, descending to the burning surface of MYRRANTH3. Human Marines moved through wreckage and fire, with silent competence. They lifted debris off trapped survivors. They carried children out of collapsed shelters. They spoke gently, offering water, blankets, comfort. A Myranth child approached Sergeant Jonah Reed, eyes wide with awe. "Are you Star Angels?" Jonah knelt, lowering his weapons, softening his voice. "No," he said. "We're just people." The child hesitated. "But people are gentle." Jonah smiled, sad and warm. "We are," he said, "when we can be." The battle was over. 39 Droxan warships destroyed. MYRRANTH3 saved. 3 million lives protected. But the galaxy had only witnessed the beginning. The Graveworld had stirred. And the universe would never forget the moment humanity stopped hiding what it truly was. News did not travel through the Ascendancy. It erupted. Within hours, every world from the crystalline towers of Lumerus Prime to the methane oceans of DRAVNAR6 replayed the same footage. A single human warship carving through a Droxan armada in 11 minutes. 39 warships destroyed. Millions saved. A predator empire humbled. By the end of the first day, the recordings had been viewed over 10 billion times. By the end of the first week, they were impossible to avoid. The galaxy watched again and again as the Vanguard danced between cruisers, outmaneuvering every shot, striking with impossible precision. They watched human Marines lift rubble like it weighed nothing, comforting terrified children with hands that could bend metal. Whispers turned into fear. Fear turned into confusion. Confusion turned into awe. And then, questions. Had humans been hiding this strength all along? Were the rumors true that they were from a grave world no sane species could survive? Was the Union ever truly safe from them? Or had humanity been protecting the Union the entire time? On Lumerus Prime, the Eldarian Ascendancy called for an emergency council meeting, the largest in 50 years. The crystal hall shimmered with refracted starlight, thousands of transparent pillars bending illumination into soft rainbows that danced across the chamber floor. Representatives from each species filled the seats, scaled, feathered, crystalline, insectoid, every shape and color imaginable. But the mood was dark. Fear has a weight, and the room sagged beneath it. Ambassador Salith Voss, Eldarian elder of 3 centuries, took the central podium. He was so old that the crystalline strands along his spine had begun to cloud. His movements were slow but deliberate. For 30 years, Salith began, we believed humans were dangerous but controllable. We placed restrictions upon them, believing we were protecting ourselves. A hologram ignited above him, footage of the Vanguard's battle. The room fell silent. The ship moved like lightning. Droxan vessels burst into flame. Human Marines shielded wounded children with their bodies. We were wrong, Salith said. Murmurs scattered like gusts of wind. A reptilian Karothi delegate hissed. Wrong? They break our treaties. They violated every restriction. Salith raised a hand. Even the Karothi fell quiet. Yes, he said, they broke our laws. And in doing so, they saved 3 million of our people. The hologram shifted to human soldiers carrying Myrinth civilians out of burning rubble. They demanded no reward, Salith continued. No territory, no tribute. They did not conquer, they did not claim. They simply acted. A Sanathi aquatic diplomat pulsed with confusion. But why? Why risk exile? Why risk war? Why help those not of their kind? Salith turned slowly, meeting faces one by one. Because morality to them is not a treaty, he said. It is instinct. The room stilled. The ancient Eldarian's voice softened. We feared they were predators, yet they behaved as guardians. Quote, Admiral Rain Stryker stood before Earth's Parliament, a half-circle of long desks beneath a vast transparency dome. Through it, blue sky arched overhead, a peaceful lie hiding the storm beneath. Officials argued loudly. They broke the covenant. We must apologize to the Ascendancy. No, arm the fleets. Prepare for war. This will destroy everything we've built. Rain waited. She didn't need to shout. Her silence alone was enough to pull the room back into focus. Finally, the Prime Minister spoke. Admiral Stryker, he said, why did you authorize the Vanguard's intervention? Knowing the consequences? Knowing the danger? Rain thought of the images she'd seen. Children running from burning homes. Parents shielding their families. Evacuation ships shot down like insects. Screams over comm channels that cut off mid-sentence. She stepped forward. Because treaties mean nothing if they cost innocent lives, she said. A hush swept across the room. We did not join the stars to watch others die while we stood by politely. Rain continued. If our restraint becomes complicity, then it is no longer restraint. It is cowardice. She looked each official in the eye. And humanity is many things, but we are not cowards. Silence held the chamber in its grip. Then she added, softly, but with iron in her tone. We can rebuild trust with the galaxy, but we cannot bring back the dead. 6 months later, Captain Rylan Ward of the Aurora's Grace returned to the Crystal Citadel, uncertain of what waited for him. He expected fear. He expected distance. He expected the same wary glances he'd endured his entire career. Instead, Eldarion attendants approached without hesitation, bowing and greeting. Myrinth diplomats reached out to touch his arm, something their culture reserved only for the deeply respected. The aviari fluttered their feathers in welcome rather than alarm. The galaxy had changed, and humanity had not fully realized how much. At the entrance to the Grand Council chamber, Ambassador Salith Voss waited. His crystalline eyes gleamed with something almost warm. "Captain Ward," he said, "welcome home." Ryland blinked. "Home, Ambassador?" Salith smiled, the Eldarion version of one, a soft shimmer across his facial ridges. "Yes," he said, "home." Ryland walked beside him. "I feared we might be expelled," he admitted. "For many weeks," Salith said, "we debated it. Some wanted harsher laws. Some wanted quarantines. Some demanded your species be forbidden from building ships ever again." Ryland's jaw tightened. "And the final decision?" Salith stopped. He lifted a fragile Eldarion hand and laid it gently on Ryland's forearm. It was the first time Salith had ever willingly touched a human. "The final decision," the ambassador said softly, "was that strength without cruelty is the rarest thing in the galaxy." He looked up. "You are not our monsters, Captain Ward." A pause. "You are our guardians." Ryland's throat tightened. He had no words. He didn't need any. 3 days later, the Ascendancy voted. The restrictions on humanity, once iron laws, were removed. But they didn't stop there. A proposal passed with overwhelming support. The creation of a joint defense pact. A united fleet commanded by humans and allied species together. Because the galaxy finally understood something humanity had known all along. A predator who chooses peace is the best guardian of all. On the outskirts of Ascendancy space, Captain Elias Rourke stood once more on the bridge of the Vanguard, engines humming beneath his boots. "Tactical," he said. "Report." Arden lifted a brow. "Distress signal from a Sanathi colony. Unknown attackers." "No hesitation, no doubt. Set course," Elias said. "Maximum speed." Elise pushed the throttle. Stars stretched. The ship roared. Somewhere out there, innocent lives were in danger. And humans would answer. Not because treaties demanded it. Not because they wanted gratitude. Not because they sought power. But because that was who they were. Children of a grave world. Gentle monsters. Wolves who chose to guard the flock. The galaxy had seen their unrestrained strength. Now it would see something even more powerful. Their compassion. The distress call from the Sanathi colony crackled through the Vanguard's comms, weak, broken, filled with static and terror. Captain Elias Rourke listened in silence as fragments came through. Breach in the southern ridge. Unknown attackers, not Droxen. Civilians trapped. Help us, please. The bridge went still. Elise Hart adjusted their course without waiting for the order. Arden Hale brought weapons online. The hum of the engines deepened, resonating through the hull like a pulse quickening before a sprint. Elias stood with one hand resting on the command rail. Not tense, not rushed, simply ready. "ETA?" he asked. 17 minutes, Elise replied. "Good. Prepare for deployment on arrival." The Vanguard moved like a spear through blackness, slipping between stars with the confidence of a ship that had faced annihilation and survived without a single casualty. But this time, something felt different. This wasn't reaction. This wasn't retaliation. This wasn't the breaking of rules. This was duty, given, recognized, and accepted by the galaxy itself. They were no longer hiding. They were no longer restrained. They were no longer pretending to be anything less than what a grave world forged. They were protectors. Sanathi Colony Kaya 4 appeared in the viewport, a shimmering world of violet oceans and luminous forests. But its beauty had been scarred. Fire dotted the southern ridge. Smoke rolled across the treetops. Explosions flickered like dying stars. Arden narrowed his eyes. No Droxen signatures. Not even close. Scanning. These attackers aren't in any known Ascendancy database. Elias frowned. Unknown? Completely, Arden said. Their ships are organic, alive. And the weapon signatures. Captain, they're harvesting planetary matter, not occupying, not conquering, stripping. Vacuum feeders? Elise whispered. We thought they were a myth. Arden nodded slowly, face pale. They're real. Vacuum feeders. Nomadic predators rumored to devour planetary crusts and leave only hollow shells behind. More force of nature than species. No diplomacy, no mercy. They were not here to kill the Sanathi. They were here to consume their world. Elias didn't hesitate. Deploy rescue teams, he ordered, and prepare weapons. Arden exhaled once, calm, steady. Elise, bring us in low. Dropships launched like silver arrows streaking toward the burning ridge. Human Marines braced for impact, their armor gleaming in the light of the fractured sky. Sergeant Jonah Reed stood at the front of his squad, gripping his rifle loosely, not out of fear but responsibility. We move fast, he told his team. We keep them safe. Everything else is secondary. The Marines nodded. When the dropship doors burst open, heat rushed inside, dry, suffocating, alive with smoke. The ground shook from distant detonations. Sanathi, civilians, ran through the forest, their translucent skin shimmering with stress. Jonah lifted both hands, making himself small. We're here to help, he called. A Sanathi elder stopped mid-flight, stunned. You came, she whispered. Humans, you came. Jonah's throat tightened. Of course we did. Quote. Behind him, his squad fanned out, lifting logs off trapped survivors, stabilizing wounded, shielding families from falling debris. Every move was deliberate, every step careful, every gesture gentle. Because humans knew how to hold back, even at their strongest. Elias watched from the bridge as the vacuum feeders shifted position. Their ships rippled like living metal, tendrils rooted into the planet's crust, feeding off minerals and energy. They're draining the mantle, Arden said. If they stay another hour, the colony dies. Elias finished. He breathed once, slowly. Open a channel. Static. Then a pulse of alien noise. Unstructured, unreadable, more like hunger than language. No diplomacy, Arden murmured. They don't understand negotiation. Elise straightened. Captain, what do we do? Elias Rourke turned to his crew. For a heartbeat, he remembered 30 years of restraint, of careful steps, of quiet voices, of being told not yet, and not here, and not ever, of smiling through fear he didn't cause. And he remembered something else. The Myrenth child calling them star angels. He lifted his chin. We protect the innocent, Elias said. Same as always. The Vanguard dove. Tendrils lashed upward, launching bolts of molten bioplasma. Elise dodged, twisting the ship between blasts of liquid fire. Target the core structures, Elias ordered. Locked, Arden said. Firing. Beams of white-hot energy sliced through the feeder's outer shell. The creature ship convulsed, excreting clouds of corrosive vapor that hissed against the Vanguard's shields. Shields at 60%. Maintain course, Elias said calmly. The second feeder ship lunged, attempting to wrap around them. Elise pushed the controls so hard, sparks burst from the console. Not today, she hissed. The Vanguard spun, engines roaring, dragging the feeder off balance. Arden fired a volley of fracture torpedoes. They pierced the creature's hide and detonated. The ship split apart like overripe fruit, spilling incandescent matter into space. Arden exhaled. One down. Elias shook his head. Not enough. They'll keep coming. Quote. As if summoned by his words, 3 more feeder ships erupted from subspace, massive, writhing, hungry. Elise's breath caught. Captain. He raised his hand. We hold the line. Union relay stations picked up the battle. Civilian feeds tuned in. Dozens of worlds watched in real time. They saw the Vanguard spiral through alien monstrosities like a blade dancing through water. They saw human Marines shield Sanathi families with their own bodies. They saw a species built for war choose protection instead of conquest. And slowly, very slowly, the galaxy's fear began to bend into something else. Trust, admiration, hope. Chief Engineer Mara Lin's voice crackled through the comms. "Bridge, reactor at 148%. If we push any harder." "We're not stopping," Elias replied. "Aye, Captain." Elise swung the Vanguard toward the last feeder, weaving through its thrashing limbs. Arden lined up the shot. "Torpedoes armed." Elias didn't blink. "Fire!" Quote. A streak of blazing light shot forward, straight into the feeder's core. And the creature imploded, collapsing into a cloud of dying embers. Silence fell across the bridge. Elise let out a long breath. Arden slowly lowered his hands. Mara's voice returned, exhausted but triumphant. "Core, stabilizing." "That's the last of them." Elias nodded once. "Signal the colony. Inform them the threat is gone." Hours later, as Sanathi families embraced their rescuers and Marines loaded the last of the injured onto medships, the Elderion ambassador Salith Voss appeared on the holochannel. He bowed deeply, the deepest Elderion gesture of respect. "Captain Rourke," Salith said, "once again humanity acts before others even decide how to feel." Elias inclined his head. "They needed help." "Yes," Salith said softly, "and again you gave it freely." A moment passed. "Tell me, Captain, after all you have endured, all the restraint you have shown, why continue to protect those who once feared you?" Elias looked out the viewport, watching Sanathi children wave at human Marines. "Because strength means nothing," he said, "if it isn't used to shield someone else." Salith smiled. "And that," he whispered, "is why the galaxy will never fear you again." The Vanguard lifted from the Sanathi world, engines flaring as it returned to patrol. The crew stood ready, calm, steady. Guardians, not because they were asked to be, not because treaties commanded it, not because the galaxy begged for it, because it was written into their bones. Children of storms, forged by danger, gentle monsters by choice. Humanity had revealed its unrestrained strength. Now it revealed something even greater. Its heart,